Disclaimer, I'm not a Batman connoisseur. I may not get it right, but it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. Welcome back. On this channel, we like to explore the myriad of ways that a design can be used to communicate the intention of a vehicle or a product. I love looking at different designs, analyzing them, exploring them, looking at them as rolling sculptures, for example, picking them apart, even sometimes adding my own personal touch to those designs. Even more recently, I've enjoyed analyzing the vehicles in video games just to see what the designer could do when they're not shackled by the chains of reality. In this episode, I want to see how design can be used to investigate the personality of a character. For me, there's no better place to start than in the world of cinema. And who better than the iconic character of Batman? I've designed a lot of cars, a lot of things in my life, but I've never done a Batmobile, and I'd absolutely love to do one of those. But first, I need to know if you'd like to see me do that. And if you do, please leave a comment below, and judging on that, I will certainly attack it if you guys want me to do it. The first Batmobile appeared in the comics in 1939, but that car was firmly grounded in reality. Since then, there have been over 250 versions of Batmobiles over decades of films, TV shows, comics, even cartoons. However, we're going to begin at a moment in time when the Batmobile became a spectacle in its own right. So we'll start with the 1966 Batmobile. Now let me set the scene. You're being held hostage in a bank heist. You've got a bomb strapped to your chest. The villain has the detonator in his hand. And the hero arrives to save the day. And then you see, he's pulled up in this.
Robin!
You have to admit, as iconic as this vehicle is, your hopes of survival have diminished, even if just a little bit. Now, this car was very typical of the time. It had that space age look. The tail fins, especially very popular in America, were there. That huge amount of glass around the vehicle. But let's be honest, it's not really what we'd call a manly, macho design. You look at Batman and you can definitely see the correlation between the way he was dressing during that period and this vehicle. They actually suited each other. I mean, this is probably the perfect vehicle during that time for Batman and Robin to be in.
They may be drinkers, Robin, but they're also human beings.
Obviously, they started with an existing platform, an existing car, which was actually a concept car. It was called the Lincoln Futura. It's obvious that the femininity of the design of this car comes from the 1955 Lincoln Futura's design language. And for me, it's obvious that the design task that they were given was for George and team to make the car much more macho and much more masculine. And then it seems that George Barris stuck an unnecessary phallic symbol on the front of the car, the biggest jet engine nozzle that he could get away with on the back of the car, and 3 erect tailpipes standing at attention on top of the car. Having worked with many OEMs in the past for many years, I can almost guarantee that you'll find somebody within the marketing department whose job is to find anything remotely sexual about the car, take offense to it, and have you change it. So the fact that this Batmobile made it through unscathed tells me that somebody knew what was going on and had a good laugh. Well, this Batmobile makes me think that this Batman is perhaps more inconvenienced by crime rather than being more enraged by crime.
Let's go faster.
You see that sign, Robin? Speed limit, 55 miles an hour. A good driver always observes the speed laws. It's the best way to stay out of trouble.
You're right.
Moving into 1989 now, this Batmobile really stands out as for what I see Batman as. It was less like a product and more like Batman himself with 4 wheels. Now, the first thing that my eyes fall upon is that massive intake in the front. This is obviously inspired by jet aircraft. I'm sure the designer knows something about jet aircraft and even war machines, perhaps. It almost looks like one of those cow catchers on the old trains. As low as you can put a front end to the ground, it'll scoop up anything in its way. As you come back over those fenders, you come to what is probably more of a jet fighter canopy than a canopy that you would see, or a greenhouse that you would see on a car. Move to the rear, over the rear fender, it suddenly does become the Batmobile at the rear. Those are absolutely obviously done to look and resemble as bat wings. And then you come to the rear with that massive nozzle of a jet engine in the back. This car is intimidating. Now, looking at the car much more closely in detail, it appears to have something like akin to armor plating. This is more related, more akin to an armored tank, perhaps a sort of military grade type weapon. I don't know, but it's got armor on it. They've added military grade weaponry to this car, I'm sure, but at the same time, they haven't forgotten about the sensuality of the design. That's what I like about this one. It looks evil, but it also looks sensual at the same time. You can see it through the line flow, the treatment of the surfaces, how everything sort of works from front to back. You get the feeling that this was designed with a lot of joy, a lot of creativity. This design tells me that Batman still has a soft side, an emotional side, yet he can handle himself in a fist fight. Now we're looking at the 1995 Batmobile, and this one is revealing a whole new side to Batman's character. This car, this one, shows actually a much more organic aesthetic to it. It's actually showing things like having ribs and having wings. I don't know how safe this vehicle would actually be, because to actually show the innards through the lighting of the vehicle doesn't seem quite safe to me, yet they might have some type of technology that allows you to be protected. This design certainly harks back to Batman's comic book origins, simply because it's so graphic-like and so exaggerated. The front of this Batmobile is a little bit creepy crawly-like, a little bit bug-like. That doesn't really, for me, suit the vehicle. Now, when you move to the side view, that's where I think it starts to capture the new Batmobile feeling. Look at that dynamic profile, that wing structure that goes up towards the rear, which really captures the essence of Batman's cape. Then you have that nozzle out the rear that just, I would imagine, shoots nothing other than flames. You get that real impression that this is as organic as it gets when you're thinking about Batman, kind of a replica of himself. Overall, what does this Batmobile tell me about Batman's personality? Well, it shows a certain amount of vulnerability with those exposed ribs and also being able to see within the skeleton. It wouldn't surprise me if this Batman had the common insecurities, the common anxieties, the common fears of the modern man of today. Looking back at the '66 Batmobile, we can see they used phallic symbols to make Batman seem even more masculine. That's something they referred back to in the 1995 Batmobile, and let's face it, that's just a phallus on wheels. But they use it in a much more mature way that actually expresses Batman's humanity. But what is it about billionaires that everything they make has to look like a massive
Pecker!
Oh, where?
Wait, that's not a woodpecker. It looks like someone's...
Privates! We have reports of an unidentified flying object! It is a long, smooth shaft!
So overall, the 1995 Batmobile captures the nature of Batman. Ultimately, the design best captures his comic book origins. Maybe not the most prettiest, but definitely the most unique.
On in 5.
Looking at 2005 now, this Batmobile is a shocker. Long gone is the humanity and vulnerability of the '95 Batmobile. Even further away is the style and elegance of the '89 Batmobile. Forget anything about the lightheartedness and the comedy of the '66 Batmobile. This one is all about pure warfare, pure violence, aggression. This Batmobile is looking for a fight. This Batman is not all about justice. This Batman is out for revenge. They've actually taken the model of a Lamborghini Countach, cut it in half and mated it with a Hummer. If that isn't extraordinary, well, they've actually added to the cockpit of a Lightning P-38. That makes it look already about as aggressive as any vehicle could ever look. I'd almost have to say this vehicle has no design at all. It is all about purpose, and that kind of reflects, I would say, in Batman himself. He's not a person anymore. He's a machine. That takes precedence over the heart and soul of Batman. With the previous Batmobiles, we get a sense of the personality, a sense of the character of Batman. With this, we get nothing. There's a void, there's a silence. This could even belong to the villain. So I'm expecting that line between the good guy and the villain to be extremely blurred. In summary, this Batmobile shows me that Batman has an almost don't come near me approach. I'm only going to put myself out there when I want to. Nobody can get near me. Nobody can damage me. I've lived through hard times. I've seen traumatic things in my life. No longer is our focus fixed on the central character. Now it's about the themes of impenetrability, invulnerability, trauma, darkness, the thin line between good and evil, between chaos and order. That's why I think this design choice was perfect, to encapsulate the time period when this one came out.
Only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
Now I know that the next Batmobile hasn't been released yet, but we have seen some images trickle down and we know what's coming pretty much. The new one is far less aggressive than anything we've seen up to now. This one goes back to the roots of Batman, where he was kind of more of a detective. What this Batmobile gives me the feeling of is that we're looking at a dystopian future somewhere where Batman has slid a bit. He's lost his wealth. He's lost his credibility. He's got a car that he's had to actually build, perhaps himself, and he's out there trying to regain his status in the world. Maybe there's a bit of hope in this. He hasn't given up. He's still working as Batman. He's probably learned from the mistakes he's made in the past, and he's bouncing back. So there is a good message. Perhaps long gone is the flawlessness of the Batman machine. And now it looks like he's scraping together whatever he can. And that gives this Batmobile and Batman himself a new sense of character. And that makes me really excited to see what the next installment of the Batman brings.
The hell are you supposed to be?
I'm vengeance.
This guy's crazy.
And that's a wrap. As you know, I'm not a Batman aficionado. I may be wrong. I certainly tried to interpret the character of Batman through the design of these vehicles. Again, I may be wrong, but I've had a lot of fun doing it. I hope I've come close to the interpretations of his character through the character of the car. I hope you guys have learned a little bit, or at least understood my feelings for these Batmobiles. Put your comments below. I'll look forward to reading them, and I'll see you in the next episode.